Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Locker Room. I'm your host, Brian Tull. Just want to get into a few things. Pretty much today is about NCAA, college basketball, hoops. Seems to be the big stories are coming from that part of the sports world this week. So I'll get right into it. First thing, let's get what's on the court. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines and the Louisville Cardinals. For getting to the finals. I think it's going to be a pretty good matchup. It's going to be, it's going to be high scoring. It's going to be exciting, and I think that college basketball could use some good news with this matchup, considering the state of the game the last few years and some of the finals that we've had. That Butler, Connecticut one, I'm still recovering from that one, but I'll leave that for another day. And also some of the news is happening is off the court pertaining to college basketball. So I'll get right into that. I'm on this. Actually, before I go into that, I'll just say right now, I think I'm going to go with Michigan with the upset, man. I feel that Michigan's right now a team of destiny, even though Louisville's got the whole Kevin Ware thing on their side. I think that Michigan has shown they have the talent to be a top team throughout the year. I think now that they're playing one and done games, you can start seeing their talent coming to fruition. So I think I'll go with the upset, and I'll take Michigan. I'll take a score of 78-74, Michigan wins it. Free throws down the stretch seals the deal. So that's my prognostication for Monday night's game. As far as off the court, let's start with the Mike Rice situation at the Rutgers campus. Mike Rice was the former coach of the Rutgers. Can't remember what their name is. Scarlet Knights, I think it is. So he was caught on tape verbally and physically abusing his players during a practice. This case has really exploded, has now hit the national media, and I think everyone has a lot of opinions about if he should have been fired. What he did was something that the Rutgers athletic director or the administration moved on sooner. Was the crime that they had? Well, I should say the punishment is not a crime, but the punishment that they had initially, which I think was a few days suspended, and then he had to go for some type of counseling or something like that. Was that sufficient, or did the media overreact to what he did, and now he's fired? Now, my personal view is that I think he stepped across the line, and I had this debate with my buddy Thelson earlier this weekend, and we're on different sides of the argument in this case, and I really feel this case that verbal abuse. You're right. In the past you see verbal abuse from coaches. I mean, Bobby Knight being the most obvious example, and as far as I was concerned, I don't think it was right back then too. But I think with technology and media, the environment we're in, and we're now post Penn State. Everything's going to be looked under a microscope when it comes to college campuses, and when you're verbally abusing players and then physically abusing them, which I think is the part that adds a really insidious element to it, where you see them kicking players, tossing balls at players from about maybe 3-4 feet away. I mean, you throw that in with the verbal abuse, the slurs, and everything like that. It's a cocktail for disaster. And I think unfortunately, it was a little too late, but I think the right decision was made. That he had to go. I think in this case he should have gone beforehand. And I think the argument on the other side is that this has always happened in the past. Players are used to this type of abuse when practices are being run. The irony about this, I find, is from that argument is that it was a former player that actually was the quote-unquote whistleblower, and now he's faced the repercussions of that because he's been let go from the staff as well, too. And that's Eric Murdoch, who used to be a pretty good combo guard. I think he used to play for, Providence, I think it was. It's either Providence or Connecticut, one of those two Big East teams. But he's got to have a combo guard. I think he used to play under, I think it is Providence. He used to play under Patino, I believe. And yeah, he had about 10 years career. Played in New Jersey as one of the teams. So after that, Rutgers hired him to be their player development coach or player development personnel, and he was videotaping it. And I guess that kind of adds a different element to it for folks that were considering, or at least are the argument saying that it happens all the time. But here's a former player here looking at it and saying, this is way past the pale and beyond the pale, and something had to happen on that front. So, the athletic director's gone now, the coach is gone now, the whistleblower has been removed from his post, and I think he's now dropped a lawsuit on them. So this situation gets uglier by the second. I'm sure as the weeks go by, we'll hear more stories and more information leak out about this case. So that's my 2 cents on that. And the next point, I'll make my final story about the officiating coordinator of the Pac-12, a former officiating coordinator of the Pac-12 is the former NBA referee Ed Rush. This story, I think, is really going to start, and you're going to start seeing the tell-all books coming out on this, because it seems as if, well, for those who don't know the story, during the Pac-12, I think it's a championship game against Arizona UCLA, before the game, Ed Rush had told the officiating crew for that game that pretty much reprimand Sean Miller, who's the coach of Arizona. If he gets out of line, and anyone that did so will receive $5,000 and a trip to Mexico. Now, he says he was joking about it, but it seems like some of the referees, they're now coming out is saying that wasn't a joke. That seemed to be a pretty serious statement that he was making about that. And now, word is coming out about, since then now he's been fired, I think, this past Thursday, or let go or resigned, however they want to put it, from his duties. And I think you have to, because it becomes a poison pill. Everyone starts thinking that he's got it out for a particular team or a coach, and once you lose credibility when it comes to officiating, it's done. And ironically, just heard on ESPN this week, Tim Donaghy, the referee that was doing side bets, whatever the case, in the NBA, when he got suspended and then quickly dismissed from the NBA, never to be heard of again. I guess Commissioner Stern decided to kind of put him in some vault somewhere that we never hear from him. He resurfaced this week to discuss Ed Rush and some of his personality traits and his thoughts about Ed Rush during his time in the NBA. It seems like Mr. Rush's personality was a bit abrasive back then, where he used to hold a lot of grudges towards different players. I even mentioned that there was issues of racism. That's not my words. That's what Tim Donaghy was spouting off. Seems like he and Cuban had a bit of a beef, and you try to stick at the Cuban and the Mavericks quite consistently. So I think as time goes on, we'll get more stories coming out, and be it good on the good side, a good light with Ed Rush or a poor light, whatever the case may be. We're definitely going to hear a lot more stories about Ed Rush. And personally, I think the NBA is just more frightened about this story probably than the NCAA, because he wasn't actually an official in the NCAAs. He was an administrator, so they can cap that off in the NCAAs. But in the NBA, I'm sure there's stories abound of his decision making when it came to officiating games in the NBA, and that's the last thing Stern wants as he's heading out into the sunset of his leadership for the NBA. So I think this story has got way more legs and more pieces of the puzzle to be put together. So I'm looking forward to hear what's gonna be said in the near future. But those are my thoughts this week on pretty much everything college basketball. Next week we'll get back to some stuff. We have the Masters coming up, the last week or two of the NBA season. Hopefully by then Crosby will be back in the NHL, and we'll get some hockey talk going on. And and stuff. It's the springtime, so who knows? And other things will be popping up too. In the next couple of weeks as well. And we'll have a final. We'll have a championship winner, of course, for the NCAA tournament. So, once again, thank you for listening to me. Once again, stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you next week.